Trade PMR offers to support the growth that RIAs deserve. Whether you're looking to add an additional custodial services provider or make the switch to a new one, Trade PMR offers advisors access to dedicated team members. So when you need help, you know exactly who to call. Trade PMR, member of FINRA and SIPC. Welcome to the WealthStack podcast. I'm your host, Shannon Rosic, the Director of WealthStack Content Solutions. I'm joined by Sara Baker of Triad Wealth Partners today, and today's topic, tactics at high growth firms. Sara, thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Shannon. I love your podcast, and it's on my regular rotation, so it's an honor to be invited.
Oh my gosh. Well, I really appreciate that. I saw you speak at Market Council and I said, I have to have Sara on. She has so many interesting things to say. So I'm glad we are finally making this happen. But before we dive into our first segment, I just want to start with your background. And I always joke that this is the hardest question you're going to get this entire conversation. So tell me about what makes Sara, and how you ultimately landed at Triad Wealth.
Yeah, so I wish I could sit here and say I knew I'd be in financial services and I knew I'd be doing what I'm doing. Definitely not true. I did not know I'd be going into financial services one day. I went to law school and was a strategic communication major, so wasn't quite sure really what I wanted to do. I think like that's a lot of the reason why people go to law school. Needed some more time to figure it out. I was a college athlete and thought I could play sports forever when I was young, and realized, nope, gonna need to make some money. And just kind of honestly followed the opportunities where I really loved being a lawyer, went in-house. And that's when I really started getting into the financial services industry. I went in-house at Mariner Wealth Advisors after practicing at a large international law firm for 5.5 years. And M&A, I went into M&A, and that's where I was like, I love growth. I love these like strategic initiatives and helping companies think about, how you grow and being really thoughtful about how you grow, and started working with advisors and just found a passion of helping advisors. And that really morphed into a business role. And I got the product and tech bug and had an opportunity to help launch Betterment Institutional, and got introduced to Steve Lockshin when I was at Mariner. And that got me really passionate about product and tech. But then I also knew I was really passionate about working with advisors, and ultimately landed at Edelman Financial Engines, which was this great intersection, because Financial Engines was a fintech company. And then you had Edelman Financial Services, that was more traditional financial services firm, and spent some time in product and tech there, but really found a passion for planning and working with advisors on advanced planning topics. So really, felt like I had this unique background with legal, planning, product and tech. And Triad Partners came along. They wanted to build an RIA, and I felt like got this entrepreneur in me, but wasn't quite necessarily ready to start my own thing. And they were like, we want to bring folks from the RIA space to build an RIA here. And I was like, let's go. Now's the time. They had this big vision and want to change the industry. And I get fired up with stuff like that. So that's really how I landed at Triad Wealth Partners.
Well, minus the lawyer aspect, we had very similar trajectories. I had no intention of going into financial services, as I was also a comms major in college and was also an athlete, and similar sentiment where I said, oh, okay, I'm going to have to translate into something because my parents were ready for me to fly out of the nest, if you will. So it's so funny how we end up on these trajectories, but I love it. And I always say it's the people that really keep me in this industry. I absolutely love it. And so like you, I've really found my place. And so I want to dive in and hear a little bit more about Triad Partners and the RIA of Triad Wealth. Just give the high level overview of both and what they do.
Yeah. So coming from the RIA side of the house, Triad Partners is a field marketing organization, or an insurance marketing organization. And I had honestly never heard that term before. So learned something new. But what Triad Partners does as a FMO, a field marketing organization, they work with independent advisors, and they help them grow. And there is a component of life insurance and annuities to that. But it's so much bigger than that. Like, they're very growth focused and looking at, okay, as an advisor, do you have your mission and your vision and your culture all locked down before you really start diving into the sales and marketing aspect of that? So Triad Partners is a business development company that focuses on marketing and sales with only growth advisors, which is what I love. I think that is just really, really fun to work with advisors who want to grow and are open-minded and really curious with a hunger to learn. And then Triad Wealth is the RIA that is also supporting these advisors. It doesn't really make sense to help an advisor grow if you're only working on one side of their business. You need to work on all sides of their business. And I think the future really is fee-based, not just a commission, not just only fees, right? Like, let's use the whole toolbox here.
Hey, that makes sense to me. And because Triad Partners in particular helps their partners, as you said, grow using annuities and insurance, how have you navigated the sometimes negative perception that comes with annuities? I personally think it's a bit narrow-minded.
Yeah, there is a negative perception for sure, especially it's some of the wealth management firms that are out there that are fee only. But what I'd say, especially with some of my planning background, is when as a professional service provider, you really need to look at what problem does your client solve, and it's your job to give advice. And are you really giving advice if you aren't willing to fill up your toolbox with all of the tools necessary to solve your client's problem? And some clients, it does not matter where they're at in their life journey. Like, you have to meet them where they're at. And if a client is unnecessarily paranoid about outliving their money, or maybe they have a really good like maybe they really will outlive their money, I think that you need, as an advisor, to be able to provide advice on that solution, right, to their problem. So I think it's really important, if you say you do comprehensive planning, but you know nothing about life insurance or annuities or how they work, and you can't advise your clients on the pros and cons of all of those, I think you're really doing your clients a huge disservice.
Well, that debunks that. So appreciate the background and context, Sarah. So I want to dive into our first segment that I call Stats All Folks. And we actually just released a research brief around the perceptions and realities of RAA growth. And according to 40% of the respondents, they said that growth means AUM. And look, while that's important, that isn't necessarily the only important factor, right?
No, I don't. I think it's a factor, right? For me, we're looking at the rate at which you're growing. We're looking at your client retention. We're looking at how many CIOs do you have? Looking at how many referrals are you getting? How much share of wallet do you have? Like, all of these different factors that you're going to look at of how are you growing. So AUM is very important, but I don't think it tells the full picture. So I think you really have to look at all these other like KPIs or different levers that you can pull as an RIA, and look at those, and then also the why. Like, why are you trying to grow? Because AUM may not necessarily be the thing that helps drive the growth, depending on what your succession plans are or what your long-term goals are.
And based on the current landscape, what are you seeing now when it comes to the biggest challenge or maybe top challenges REAs are facing when it comes to growth?
So I think there's really two big challenges. One is capital, like, how do you actually fund the growth? And then the human capital component of it. What are you doing about the culture of your firm? Bringing in talent, putting people in the right seats. So I think that's like the same coin, different sides. There's actual capital, like, how do you get the money to spend, to invest? And then how do you make sure that you've got the right people? Because hiring the wrong people can really set you back. I mean, you may have all the momentum in the world or have all of the potential and think you've got this great pipeline, or this great value prop, but if you don't have people who are on fire for your mission and vision and can help you execute, well, then, like, you're not going to grow. Because I think execution is honestly what separates some of the best RIAs out there, or the RIAs that are going to make it, is how well do they execute. It's really hard to execute.
Oh, I can imagine. And I would imagine, utilizing technology would play a factor into that. And as someone who's been covering the wealth tech space for a little while now, I was actually a bit disheartened by the next perception reality from our study. And the perception was that advisory firms emphasize the role of technology when in reality, only a minority of firms are employing a chief technology officer or a head of tech. And very few are actually considering tech as a growth driver. I need you to just completely debunk this.
Yeah, I feel like technology is one of the legs on the bar stool, right? So if you aren't finding a way to invest in technology and make sure that your tech stack is sound and how you're turning that into a your client experience, there's nothing to sit on. There's nothing to sit on. So yes, you can be doing all these other things right, but to me it is one of the legs on the bar stool. I'm not surprised, I guess, that only not everyone has a chief technology officer. And I will say this: if you are a smaller RIA and you're partnering with someone like a Triad Wealth or other like TAMPs out there as well, then you can piggyback off the scale that they've created for their community, for their advisors that they're working with. So I'm like, I hope that maybe some of these are smaller RIAs that are actually working with a larger RIA to that's providing that technology and doing the research, and is very passionate about technology. But I feel like you may be good now, but there's no way your growth is going to stay at the same trajectory that you want it to be if you're not aware and thoughtful about the technology that you're using and your client experience that you're delivering.
I agree. And despite the growth of the REA industry as a whole and what we've seen lately, many of the emerging firms seem remarkably similar, a sea of sameness, if you will. So, how can firms really create something new and different? And how do they ultimately convey that message?
Yeah, there is a sea of sameness. I've heard that phrase and I like it. It does. It feels like it's very true. And I mean, at the end of the day, honestly, you see Kitsis's, wealth, or tech stack roadmap or all these tools that are out there, and anyone can buy all those things, right? So you can go out and you can buy the same exact tech stack as our gray down the street. I think what makes it different and how you differentiate yourself is how you customize it into your client experience and how you train the operators of the tech stack. Because I think that's where things really fall apart is you buy the tech stack and you're like, I have the best tech stack, but then you have bad operators. And if you don't know how to operate it, it's epically useless. And so you do have to really go in on training and practice management and bring it to life and have a way to take all of that data and turn it into your own unique client experience, because you may have the exact same tech stack as someone else down the street, but it could be a wildly different client experience based on how you've chosen to train the operators of that tech stack. So hopefully that answers your question, but that's my perception on that.
No, I just think the education and training around tech is so critical in our industry right now because like you said, there is a plethora of options. I think there's something like 400, solutions on that Kitsy's fintech map now, which can be
Mhm.
very overwhelming. And so as you mentioned, while you could have the same tech stack, it could be very different depending on how you're utilizing it, what your business goals are. And so I always struggle with the idea of is the onus on the tech vendors to be training these advisors, or do the advisors and their firms really need to step up and create that culture of learning and training? Kind of where does it start, right?
Yes.
So what are you championing at Triad?
Yeah. Oh my, I'm really glad we just dove into this one. So, because we really do try to make sure that we don't have vendors. We have partners, right? And we have some incredible partners who are willing to jump on planes and go to our experiences. We do 4 experiences a year with our advisor community. And so it is like, hey, we want your help seeing how have you successfully rolled this out. But it is on us. It is on us to do the training. And what I think really makes it powerful is when you create this community. I think when you talk about the sea of sameness, if you can create a community where the advisors feel like you can reach out for help. There's no stupid question. It's like, hey, what are you using for this? What's working, what's not working? And you're learning from each other. I feel like that's when you start elevating to this whole other level, and where it really does not matter what other RIAs are doing, because you have your own unique culture, your own unique community that people feel that they're part of. And it honestly, it sometimes doesn't even necessarily matter what the tech stack you chose was, as long as you've trained on it and there's other advisors who are using it, and you feel safe asking questions and piggybacking off each other what you're learning. That's really, really critical, I think, in differentiation.
And are you seeing that the end client actually cares what technology their advisor is using, or is it just give me a good seamless experience? I don't really care what's going on in the back end.
No, no. I think for anyone who is a professional service provider. Like whether when you go to your doctor, whether you go to your accountant, whether you when you use your lawyer, do you care how they did the research or what tools they used or partners that they have behind the scenes? You care when you're sitting in front of someone who's giving you advice. Do you have rapport with them? Do you trust them? And you're listening to them. It does not matter. Now, as the person who's delivering the advice, you must have the tools. You must have the tools. And I think there's something just incredible about like visualizations. Like I love the advice engagement tools that are out there right now with these visualizations. I think they're incredibly powerful, and can really have a profound impact in the conversation that you're having with a client. But at the end of the day, it is your advice that really matters, and the tool can amplify the advice, but it can't just substitute the advice.
Absolutely. And look, even I get this wrong sometimes, but I want to hear it from you. What's the difference between growth and scale?
Yeah, so I think they're different things. So growth does mean you're hiring. If you say, and this is where I think some firms just go sideways or go analysis paralysis, because you do have to put your money where your mouth is. If you say you want to grow, it means you have to hire. Like there is no way around it. There is no, like at some point you will grow to a point where you need to hire someone, right? So growth is like, yes, you need to hire in order to support your growth. And that a lot of times requires you doing it before you bring on those clients, or need to be pretty strategic about what is your first hire to support the growth that you're anticipating. Scale is also growth. You're hiring, but you're hiring less. So you don't need to hire as many people because you're at the point where you've had scale, but you don't hit scale until you've had growth first. So first you just be focused, in my opinion. Like right now with Triad Wealth, like I like to think of each year as like a theme. So the first year we launched last year, it was just launch. It was literally like build the foundation and just get the dang thing launched and get it out to market with a minimally livable product. And we've got to go. And now 2024 is about growth. I'm not worried about scale right now. Certainly, it's like on our roadmap and our strategic initiatives. We need to build for the invest in the future and make sure we're building a scalable foundation, but we're not actually scaling. We're just growing, so we're hiring. Eventually, I think in year 3, 4, 5 plus, we are absolutely scaling, and we're not hiring as many people because we've created workflows, we've automated processes, like we've created efficiencies in what we do to where we'll scale down the road. But you can't scale until you've grown first.
That is one of the most articulate and best answers I have heard to really differentiate those two because, again, they're often used interchangeably in our industry, and that's wrong. So, thank you for clearing that up. So, I have to ask too, now that you are in it at Triad Wealth, are there any case studies or success stories around the growth strategies your firm recommends and provide for its partner RAs that you can share? Any standout stories as of late?
Yeah, so Triad does only want to work with high growth firms, which I think is pretty special because what it allows us to do is to really go all in on the training and be a little bit more boutique. So we've had firms that have grown by 50%, 100% in 1 year just by saying, okay, I know I've got to grow first before I scale. And those principles of scale are really critical, which our founder kind of like I think he dubbed them the 5 principles of scale around vision, mission, culture, sales, and marketing. But we have seen I've worked with firms where they're like, we're going to become an RIA right out of the gates, and they're seeing in crazy growth, because they're really embracing the let's start with our vision, our mission, our culture, and then turning on our sales and marketing machine or our engine so that way we can start bringing on these assets and helping more clients with comprehensive planning. But that's not necessarily like, I don't want to give like a super specific example of this, but it really is. Some of our firms have grown by 50% just by getting very crystal clear on their mission and vision and their culture and cleaning all of that up so they are ready to hire, and then taking advice of hire a paraplanner or an actual planner and differentiate between a hunter and a farmer, right? In the plant,
Interesting.
because I truly believe most people only have 1 or 2 strengths, like true gifts, not strengths, like gifts. And it's very rare you find someone who has like just God-given gifts that sets you out and makes you different. And what makes you a great salesperson or prospector or rainmaker or hunter are very different gifts than what would make you an amazing service advisor, where you are focused on retention, engagement, those annual review meetings, and really digging into that depth, the depth of relationship that you need with a client in order to do multi-generational level planning to pull in their clients. And those are such different gifts, and you need them both. So we've had success with our advisors realizing and adopting that model, which I think is so powerful, of hunter versus farmer, and or service advisor versus sales advisor. They're just so different, but you really need both.
On behalf of WealthManagement.com, we invite you to join us on May 13th through 16th in Hollywood, Florida for WealthStack, part of Wealth Management Edge. Our agenda is designed to power a new generation of growth-oriented advisors with the latest innovations and trends and technology strategies. From captivating keynote speakers to interactive workshops, dedicated think tanks, a dynamic exhibit hall, and hands-on demonstrations of cutting-edge technologies, you'll leave with a deep understanding of how to accelerate growth at your practice. Use promo code podcast20 to save 20% off your registration. Visit wealthmanagementedge-event.com for more information.
Yes, yes, I would certainly agree with that. And I'm totally going to start using those terms of hunter and farmer. Love that. I don't know if the advisors will, but I like it.
Yeah.
So, final question for this segment. I know you mentioned this year is the year of growth, but what specifically is on the roadmap for Triad Wealth?
So I mentioned earlier that we launched in 2023. Now we're in growth mode. We definitely want to make sure that we're incorporating technology, and I think we've got a really solid tech stack for sure to support that scale in the future. But our roadmap for this year is really going all in on Triad Partners. There's 65 member firms, and really helping them with planning and making sure that this next gen of advisors understand the importance of leading with advice, right? And building that model and creating that culture. So it really is mostly focused on these 65 firms of helping them grow, which will help us grow. So we're in full-blown growth mode there. And then we'll start expanding out, and Triad Partners is growing. So as they onboard, like that 65 will just continue to add. But we really want to make sure that for those 65 firms, they feel like everything's under one roof, and we're fully supporting their growth. And from there, it's like we're on a mission and gonna take it to the whole industry.
Love it. All right. Growth, growth, baby. Put it on a t-shirt then. Appreciate that, Sara. But it is actually time for segment 2 of this episode. Ask Us Anything, where I've gone out to the social universe and asked them to submit questions they want answered by you. And you were certainly popular. And we did have several folks slide into the DMs this past week. So a couple questions for you. So get ready to get put in the hot seat.
Okay.
All right. First question. What growth strategies would you recommend for an RIA that deliberately chooses to operate in a niche market, perceived as quote unquote unprofitable by more mainstream advisors?
Yeah. So first, I would say unprofitable by whose standards,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like what is unprofitable to one firm may not be unprofitable to you. So I think it's really important when you go into your market and think about who who are you trying to serve? Of what's your why? Why are you in that market? And what does success mean for you? Because I don't think that's just like this industry standard of what is unprofitable. Because I think everyone has like somewhat of a different definition. So I think first you need to figure out like what is it, what is your definition? Because maybe you're okay being unprofitable for a few years because you're going in on a multi-generational approach. And so you're really investing in your clients and their children. And that means that you're not going to be on this hamster wheel of constantly needing to bring in new clients because you're going to take on your clients' children. And that may mean you're not as profitable. So I think it's just important when you go into the market, though, to definitely understand the competitive landscape. But there's more than enough people to help. There's more than enough clients out there who need help with this type of advice. Because if you honestly think about it, this industry has not been around for that long. like compared to other industries, it is such a young industry that has been in hyper growth mode, and we have succeeded in spite of ourselves. The demand was, I'm serious, the demand was just there because pensions became dinosaurs and 401ks became a thing and IRAs became a thing and all these retirement tools became available that people didn't understand. They don't understand RMDs. They don't understand all of this stuff that's relatively new and in the big scheme of things, and you need someone to talk to. So we've grown in spite of ourselves, and so you don't need to be, I would say, don't worry about what the competitor down the street is doing. What are you passionate about? Who are you trying to help? There's more than enough people to help, and get really focused on like what the problems are that you are gifted in solving, what you are passionate about solving, and go after that market. I can't remember who I heard say this. Maybe it was Brandon Fraser, of like the biggest competition that you have is your client's inability to change. And I love that so much because it's so true. It's not that what the competitors down the street are doing. Can you resonate with a group of clients or a client base or market where you can get them to change their behavior so that you can have a profound impact on their life and how they use capital to accomplish their goals? And that's all that you should be that's all you should be focused about.
Well, you make a great point about getting focused, because our next question I was a little surprised by, because this person asked, can removing or reducing services actually lead to growth for an RIA?
So that's a really good question. I've actually done this. I've actually removed services. So you're probably like, well, what? Was not expecting that answer.
Nope.
And I'll tell you where I did it and where I think it can actually have a 10 times impact if you remove a service that's getting in the way of adding more value to more clients. So like, for instance, if you were to go out and you were to go say, I want to start doing tax prep, I'm going to add more services. That sounds great, right? Like, I love that idea. And I love taxes. Tax planning is my favorite topic. So
I misjudged then on this topic today.
I'm a total nerd, but you're like, that sounds like a great idea. But then you go in, if you were to look at that book and you've got tax preparers or people who are qualified to do tax planning, doing tax returns for low AUM households. And if you stopped and you shut down those tax returns to do tax planning for high net worth, now those clients, you're going to have so much stickiness with those clients. You're going to generate more referrals from those clients. So you can, I think you can do so much with those resources, because that is very nichey and that adds so much value. And like, what level of value can you get from doing a $400 tax return or doing forward-looking tax planning that can really change someone's life and save them thousands of dollars in taxes and create immense stickiness? And so that's where it's like more shifting the services that you provide, of doing something that's a commoditized versus something that is strategic. So I don't know if I answered that question, but I do think you can take away a service to add a much more valuable service. But I'm definitely a fan, and I stand true on, do not ever, ever, ever skim on your client experience as far as the human touch, the reaching out, the creating experiences for your client. Like, that stuff does cost money, like having client events, showing appreciation for your clients, knowing what they love, knowing when it's an anniversary or a birthday or something really important to them. Like, I mean, that goes a really long way, and I would never cut those types of things out.
Right, right. There's absolutely a balance, but thank you for just being the debunking and myth busting queen on this episode on all these tougher questions. So one more for you. How do you balance innovation and tradition in your organization, and what role does each play in your overall strategy? It would be great to assign a specific percentage to each smiley face.
Okay, I love this question. I'm going to say an answer you probably don't expect.
Ooh, another one. Let's go.
So tradition. If you think about it, when you are the things that you did that were a tradition for you as a child, as a teenager, when you were in college, early adolescence, you outgrow those traditions. right? But there are things that are meaningful to you. So the things that I loved about a kid, they were traditions. Well, like they don't apply anymore. Now I'm creating traditions for my kids and my family. And when they're older, they'll remember ours, but like they may live in a different part of the country. They may not have kids. And so new traditions are constantly created. So I'd say, as far as tradition, as far as people feeling like in a company, you really need to fiercely protect those. There's no way as a company you're the same as you were in year 1 or year 5 or year 10, 15, 20. You're going to constantly evolve. So like always be fond and be proud of the traditions that you have had, but always be open to creating new ones, because just like you mature as an individual and as an advisor, you're working with clients who go through accumulation phase to decumulation phase. Like things change in their life, and as a company things are changing as well. So I would make sure that you're always open-minded to creating new traditions and not holding on to them, because it will absolutely negatively impact innovation. And I think that is, it's got to be the thing. It's got to be, to me, innovation is when you look back at what you've learned and where you're currently at and tie it to where you want to go and where that can take you into the future. And that should always be happening constantly. That's 100% of the time. 100%. You're looking at, what did I learn? What do I know now? Where do I want to go? And like, let's go there and apply what we know. So innovation is 100%. And traditions, I feel like, I'm not saying I'm not giving it any percent, but it's one of those things where it should be constantly evolving. It should be you should be constantly like being excited about creating new traditions, because it means you're growing.
Well, I think the person who submitted that will be thrilled with that answer. So I appreciate you being put on the spot and your insightful answers in that segment, Sara. But we have come to what might be my favorite segment and final one: stack it or whack it. So I'm going to throw out a few technologies. They're not always wealth tech related, or sometimes they're just random thoughts and ideas, especially if I know my guest. And
Mhm.
you tell me if they are worth the hype. Essentially, stack it, use it, love it, or whack it, lose it, hate it. So I know you're from Kansas City, and as myself, an avid Chiefs fan, we have to talk Kansas City barbecue. So I have a couple favorites out there. Hopefully you've been to them as well. But I have to ask, stack or whack between like Q39, Jack Stack, Gates, anything else you want to throw out there?
Okay, so this one's easy. So I would I would stack Q39 all of the meat, and then I would jack stack all of their sides. Like if you could just combine both of those into one restaurant, it would be the perfect
It would
restaurant.
be. It
It
would
would.
be. I've
It's the
had that
best.
exact thought. That's so
Oh,
funny. Because
yes,
the burnt ends at
yes,
Q39 are the best.
they are. They're the best. The meat is the best, but the sides, I'm like, yeah, I'd rather go to Jack Stack. And then Gates,
Yes.
yeah, Gates is trash. So
All right. So we'll whack Gates.
yeah,
Fair enough. Appreciate your honesty there. All
yeah.
right. Second one, going back into the industry a little bit. Obviously, with all the SEC marketing rule changes, stack or whack when it comes to using advisors using reviews.
Ooh, I'm gonna say stack. I'm gonna say stack it. I think I think it's powerful. I think it's really powerful. You need to do it right in a way that complies with the rules and the regs. And I understand why the rules and the regs exist, but stack it for sure. Like if you've got raving fans, there's no reason why you need to not leverage that. So 100% stack it.
I would have to agree with you there as well. Sara, it's been an absolute pleasure getting to know you and appreciate all of your thoughtfulness and insights today. Feel free to tell listeners where they can find out more about you and what you're working on at Triad Wealth, or any other call to action.
Yeah. So if you are interested in learning more about Triad Partners and Triad Wealth, go to the Triad Partners website. There you can, Brad Johnson has his podcast, and Sean Sparks, one of the founders, is releasing a book. So they've got some really great resources. And I will be at the Wealth Management Edge conference as well in May. So hopefully I'll get to see some of your listeners there.
You beat me to it. But be sure to like and subscribe to the WealthStack podcast on all major podcasting platforms, and follow all things WealthStack on wealthmanagement.com, LinkedIn, and Twitter. And if you want the in-person WealthStack experience, like Sara mentioned, please join us May 13th through 16th at the Diplomat in Hollywood, Florida for Wealth Management Edge. And thank you all for tuning in. Trade PMR offers to support the growth that RIAs deserve. Whether you're looking to add an additional custodial services provider or make the switch to a new one, Trade PMR offers advisors access to dedicated team members, so when you need help, you know exactly who to call. Trade PMR, member of FINRA and SIPC.